Alright, how's it going, everyone? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? I have some amazing news to come across. I've been, what's it called? I got a second monitor, so I'm gonna probably be able to stream a lot more, like, of my console stuff later on, like, in the weekends. Possibly in the weekend. I'm trying to figure out a game to be able to play because I finished Res Evil 3 over the last weekend. But aside from this, another amazing news is what's it called? My model's finally in the process of being rigged, so it's one of those things I'm really looking forward to. I've been very patient with it, so it's been really nice to wait. I know time flies by so quickly, so it's one of those things where you barely kind of like I guess you barely kind of notice, or you're not like kind of like ticking at the clock, being like, "What's taking so long?" It's not that instance. It feels really nice to just be able to kind of like what's it called? Just kind of like wait it out a bit, almost kind of like slowly chip away at it over time. I think the good thing is usually a ton of stuff really pays off, like almost kind of like really quickly. Sometimes there's a really long slog, but when you progress, it like so much happens all at once. It can be overwhelming, but it could also be a ton of fun to be able to dip into. I'm also pumped up because it's almost the weekend. It has been a very long and difficult week, so it's one of those things where I kind of need both the weekend and a lot of my streams to be able to just kind of let loose. And I will be doing this by jumping straight into it. Let's go. Let me get this music off. Let's get the sound down. Let's jump right into there. And, oh, there we go. I know I need to turn this down a bit. Hold on. Let me adjust my screen. Perfect. Now we're ready to roll. I have to get used to using two screens to alternate up. Let me select a load in particular. Is this 8:35? That should be a good one, yeah. Alright, I have to remember my voices. Wow, everything looks so crisp on this new screen. It's really scary to see, like, what's his name's eyes, like, so, like, expressive. Let's see. If I look at the updates, here we go. Iota, I will permit your request. Oh, he's gonna change his testimony. Alright. Let's see that new and updated testimony. The good thing is that Hosanaga's voice is fairly easy. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no reason why the defendant would have tried to pull a knife. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. I started watching the Ashton Memo fanfiction, first one to be made ever. Oh man, what's it called? Good job on being able to have that first pairing. I feel like one of those things where I feel like it really has to be nice to be able to kind of just have that sort of like kind of like galaxy brain idea of being able to just be like, I'm gonna be the first to represent this particular like ship, just because like it's one of those things where once people notice, then like what's it called, it'll start to build up. People are gonna start to recognize it. Let's not forget. Let's see. Oh, oops. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was a defendant's highly respected mentor. Is what you said just true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Of course. Yes. Think of the weapon itself as the stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until the doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed.
Oh, I see.
Ha! This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack with some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever been given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out knows it.
Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see. Or pulled a blade out from a wound. So...
Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Ouchie. Anyone who's stabbed somebody in a Waffle House would know that you're supposed to not pull out the knife. I'm so sorry.
Father, is that true? What they're telling me?
Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge of fermetics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance to such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways.
But then, why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled the knife out in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett?
I don't know.
Ray never once mentioned anything about a knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have?
Susato,
Yes?
pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here.
Ah!
Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination.
Oh, yes, Your Excellency.
However, I must warn you, if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my agitation immediately afterwards.
I understand. Believing in your clients, fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard.
Let's inspect.
Hold it!
You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean if you used due care and attention it would be alright?
It wouldn't have thought this needs spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper for the wound. Remove it, and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it.
Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation.
You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath.
Back to the witness testimony, please. Basic knowledge, any medic research.
Hold it!
In that case, there's an obvious explanation here.
Which is?
Clearly, the defendant, Rei Membami-san, does not possess an ounce of sense. Clearly, my defendant was going sicko mode.
That's some fucking Better Call Saul shit. Clearly my defendant has no ounce of sense or logic. Sorry. What do you think about that, Professor Mikotoba? I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense.
Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer.
I don't know young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it.
Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a dangerous thing.
Oh dear. That recoiled on me rather badly.
That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn. Hopefully you can see now this is fairly basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami-san would certainly have been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would try to pull the knife. Let's see. I have to press this one.
But the defendant was suddenly encountered someone she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently.
I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this.
A woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, is it?
Why? Why am I saying... Ryutaro is very sexist. Susato's really internalizing a lot of the misogyny she learned in Britain. She really picked up a lot from that chapter 4, like, shit of like being like, women are obviously going to be irrational. It's like, no, Susato, don't parrot this. This is bad. Even Hosanaga's like, oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views. Man, Hosonaga pulling through.
Oh dear. Perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much.
Based feminist Hosonaga. Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. And now for the argument about your blatant sexism.
Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membami-san's nature to do something so awful.
But she had both a motive and an opportunity. It's very hard to argue against.
But you know the defendant.
Objection! And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law.
Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings.
With this fledgling defender, I would almost say I pity the accused.
So do I.
Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please. Ah, yes. His Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Membami-san.
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him.
Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual. Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami-san's abilities.
Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Susato. Is that oh, you shouldn't be saying Susato. It's Ryutaro. Susato, at times like this, when It's times like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
Fundamentals?
Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it?
Of course. But I've been through the court record dozens of times already.
I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too.
Ah,
I realize this is your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
examine the evidence in the court record? It's an idea, certainly. What should I do?
I think I know what to do.
Come to think of it, Kazuma-san and Naruhodo-san were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with the A button.
Ah, by the look of your eyes, you seem to be well aware of the Xbox controller. The memories are coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue.
Yes, I'll do it straight away.
Let's see. I guess it would be present. Look at this. Pick the fountain.
The RM initials are clearly engraved here.
And the fact that Miss Brett was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is very clearly a message too.
To identify her killer, you mean?
I don't think there could be any doubt that this key piece of evidence in this case.
If we take off the pen's lid, now let us unscrew the barrel, shall we? This must be a little reservoir that holds the ink.
Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from the bottle up through the nib.
Is something wrong, Father?
Just that there doesn't actually appear to be ink in there at all. That's all.
Oh yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, I could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. There's some sort of emblem here. Look. But this isn't a Yume University one.
It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But that would seem to imply a pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. Let's see, we examined this. Now how about this newspaper?
Rashis England returnee tells all. This is the interview with you and Soseki-san, isn't it, Father? It looks as though it was quite an exchange.
Yes, he became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment of his hand karate chopping me in the neck.
I do hope you weren't hurt.
Bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike.
This is a newspaper from Soseki-san's. There seems to be an important article in the back page as well. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. From Yume's medical research. Father, isn't that your lab?
What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen.
This is this morning's newspaper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know?
As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I hadn't heard a single thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned this information?
Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there?
It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I had put Ray in charge of the project.
Ray, she was managing it?
What's written here is true. It means she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow.
I don't believe it.
We need to keep this article very carefully. The poison article. Let's see the post-mortem report. Cause of death, single stab wound, mitosis, fatal hemorrhage. Pupil constriction was observed in both victims' eyes. I feel like that might potentially be poison. Maybe it's like a paralysis, sort of like poison. I see crime scene photograph. That's not something I can examine. Natsume poison article. I guess this is just the poison article. Exclusive. Following a lecture of Yume by Soseki Natsume, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place. Deadly poison secretly developed. It was stolen. Even the smallest amount could prove fatal in minutes. Via the mouth or a wound from a poison-laced blade. Current methods cannot detect a new developed chemical. Must be consulted. Onset, impaired eyes, pupils. Yes, this was poison. All right. Which exact one? No good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull a knife on the victim. Let me try this poison article.
Objection!
No, there's one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound.
What?
The yokel not only has no poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified?
It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory from Imperial Humane Unit.
Objection! The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance to the case.
But
Prosecutor Aochi, you will let the defense speak.
A newspaper article? The court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry.
Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claims. You will indicate the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mention affirms your assertion.
Your Excellency!
yes, of course. Thank you. Ray would have never done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says, deadly in tiny quantities. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison, it's rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting? If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, the truth is, It was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body.
What?
This is complete and utter nonsense.
Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny that possibility.
Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document.
Well, that's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking...
Oh, please! This is clear desperation. The weasel's last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with the case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information with this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway.
In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions, then, or the argument makes no sense.
Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, Yoko?
Why did Ray suspect the poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds.
What?
You can't possibly.
From your expression, counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone do not or no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence.
Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey.
In that case, counsel, you will present the proof to court now. What evidence demonstrates this link?
It'd be this guy. It would ask the court to refer the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was absorbed in the victim.
Ah!
Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please, do tell me. Presumably, the fact is, this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report. Means there is an unusual symptom of death, is there not?
Well,
Under no normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that is most certainly unusual, yes.
what are you doing, you yokel detective?
In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurring in minutes, ending in acute contraction of the pupils prior to death.
What?
If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely.
Yes. As a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt.
Prosecutor Aochi, I think you'll agree that this is very compelling evidence.
You, yokel student and yokel professor!
I believe the defendant has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions.
No!
Eugene Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's claim. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in the newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly. I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say.
Ah! Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of the secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper.
I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision.
Father!
Tch! A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students rather than allowing them to go on killing sprees.
That's totally unfounded. None of this is Professor Miyotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray.
Membami-san, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated.
But it was me. I was the one who noticed the poison we were developing had been stolen that day.
What?
So you knew? I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that Professor and Soseki-san were interviewed together in the newspaper. That's when I noticed some of the poison had gone missing.
Why didn't you let me know immediately?
I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So, I decided to try to get back before anyone could find out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was.
The thief?
You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was that dainty English woman.
Miss Jezebel Brett. Miss Giselle Brett. Sorry. Not Jezebel, I'm so sorry. The judge is not impartial. That's why we'll need a retrial.
That's why I decided to join in on the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on the stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me, as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison.
Well now, whatever do you mean?
And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me, and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they shrunk to tiny pinpoints.
I don't believe it. In other words, you realized the victim was suffering from the effects of the stolen poison.
My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips while I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back.
And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade.
Yes, the amount had entered her bloodstream was small enough. She might have still had a chance. That's what I'd hoped. Really, I I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with you confessed in the end.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection! Your Excellency, do not be deceived! The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Minbami-san, if that was the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed.
Well,
You have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge. Objection!
but you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you?
Oh, I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive.
What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated a moment there. I'm almost sure of it.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Professor Aochi.
Perhaps some praises due, young yokel student.
What?
I had imagined there'd be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you brought this on yourself.
Oh fuck.
What the... Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air of the beach is almost palpable.
This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature, which shows the precise moment that Minbami-san pulled the dagger into the victim's back.
No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it. Ugh.
Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense. Was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice is yet to break. These yokels are slow to mind and slow to mature.
I'll show you who's slow to mature.
Careful now. Susato's starting to show her face here. It is often said the picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will now accept this extremely cognate photographic print as evidence.
I can't believe he's had a photograph like this up his sleeve the entire time. It's such a stark image. I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute. I don't understand. How did you... who took that picture? Ray.
That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention.
Someone colored the photo with white pencil. I have to check it out and see.
Oh. That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony.
Ah!
I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once.
Well, I'm afraid I can't do that.
Pardon?
You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. But there's nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown.
Goodness.
Are we to understand then, Counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believed it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court?
When you first produced the print before, I noticed you hesitated a brief moment. Because you knew it wasn't completely reliable evidence, did you?
Silence! You local student and blabbering professor. What matters is the blatant truth that this print is so eloquently expresses.
But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from her wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment the knife was plunged in the victim's back, but
The moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste the court's time with your ramblings.
Indeed. Without knowledge of who produced the print, we have no means of verifying the claim. And the scene it captures, without a doubt, is the most compelling evidence presented in the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light, I believe the conclusion is clear.
oh no.
Susato, it's the time for you to fight. What you've established so far is true, then you have no doubt. This photograph shows the point where Ray withdrew the blade from the victim.
Yes, we just need to prove that somehow.
You have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the provinces. And to rue the day you came up against Takedown in the court of law.
If I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial's about to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be a way working out who took it.
Well, counsel?
Your Excellency, the burning question is who took that photograph. And the truth is,
I don't really know.
no. If I give up now, I'll never be able to look Ray in the eye again.
Susato, you need to steel yourself and submit your best argument.
I'll do my best. This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with an answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal.
What? No, you can't possibly. But as you so boldly claim as you can, please do enlighten us.
Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name.
How utterly underwhelming. Did you really believe you could?
However, I am able to present evidence. The defense has a clear piece of evidence that reveals important details of the photographer's identity.
What?
Very well then, counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the mysterious photographer's identity? Let's see the damning. Oh, there's nothing here. I guess it would just be here. If there's like a name somewhere. It wouldn't be the poison article, it'd be this guy.
Take that!
What is that? Newspaper again. Raucous England attorney tells all.
It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photograph. If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there's some white lines on the right side of the paper. Ooh, you were right.
Ah, yes indeed. That had already caught my eyes, it appears.
Ah! What of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably. On the branches of a tree or like.
There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you.
Now, if you look closely at this photograph,
Good gracious! Ass is bodacious!
yes, you could see the ass is perfectly bodacious. Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph too.
Well, that tells us nothing.
Do we know who photographed the news article? That would be what we need to find out.
Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely. In the branches of a tree.
There wouldn't be any trees growing inside the hut of a beach council.
What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired?
The curious matching pattern that appears on both photographic prints is the result of...
It would be the camera defect, because that shit's cracked. That just busted.
Obviously, it must be due to the problem with the camera used to take the photographs.
With the photographic device?
Yes, we can confidently say the camera's lenses must have been scratched, and that the scratched lens caused unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device.
In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera.
But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one.
Objection!
I think you're forgetting, Professor Ouchie, that one of the photographs featured in the newspaper article.
The newspaper? Oh!
That's right. The author of that article is the mystery witness to this crime.
What? Ah!
Rough. I see why you were called a raucous England returnee.
What are you yelling about? You've already testified.
It's Many Memo, I tell you. Many Memo. Memo.
Soseki-san, what was that?
Many Memo at Ashley Cannon.
Did you say many memo?
Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from the Shoyu News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Raiten Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from the dawn till dusk.
Ah, now that he mentions it.
There is a secret spy. Man, even in the courtroom, he's like spying on this dude and scribbling notes. Yes, take notes. Take notes. Man, it's pretty sharp that he's not only like, what's it called? A photographer, but he also takes notes. Man, Many Memo Ashley Cannon, yes.
Could that same reporter be?
A camera to the left of him, a notebook to the right. There I am, stuck in the middle with Raiten Many Memo. So you're saying this picture was taken by Many Memo? Yes. My court, Your Excellency Esquire. Officer, Find this newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime.
Oh, yes, Your Excellency.
As you say, Your Excellency.
And one more thing.
Many memo. Oh, like a memo? Like a memo pad? Is that like the... I'm not sure about the many parts. Oh, he has many memos. Oh yeah, those fun Ace Attorney pun names. The sort of what's it called?
I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. You will solicit the assistance of the Imperial University's medical department for the task. Understood?
Mini memo!
Yeah, it is like the the ladies first, or like I feel like a lot of the puns got like a lot wilder in like some of the Phoenix Wright ones. Of the blossoming attorney. The 13th. Now what kind of...
Yes.
Paul Ashton, beloved. Addison, Paul Addison. Frank Sawit.
I'm so sorry, Susato. I should have told you about the toxin. Ray.
I should probably do like the regular Susato voice while I'm outside.
You have a strong sense of responsibility, you know. That's why you decided to shoulder the burden alone.
No, that's not it at all.
Politician. Oh, politician. Oh, that's definitely an Ace Attorney.
I was scared for the failure coming to light is all. So I hoped to retrieve the substance from the Englishwoman before anyone found out. Before the trial started, do you remember what you said, Susato? That you had no doubt in your mind of my innocence, that you'd stand by me till the last? I remember. And yet I didn't deserve your trust in me. I hid important details from you, Susato. I completely betrayed your faith in me. Hit me, Susato. I deserve it. No, in fact, throw me to the floor. No, that's too good for me as well. Drag me through the city street.
The toxic Yuri.
I'm no better, you know. Oh! Even though in my heart I knew you'd pulled the knife blade from Miss Brett's back, there was just a brief moment when, in my mind, I doubted you. Susato, I'm sorry. After I stood there and promised that I'd stand by you and always be by your side, I betrayed your faith in me too. And as such, I failed you as a lawyer. Oh, no.
I think this situation has taught both of you a valuable lesson. Placing your unbridled faith in another is no easy task.
Yes, Father. That fact has certainly struck home. Which is why I can see more clearly now. So, Ray? Yes! Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Oh, Susato. You know, you'll always be a gallant, dashing lawyer in my eyes now. Oh, Ray.
Oh man, he's I was so scared, you know, when it happened. I didn't know what was going on. The Englishwoman was sitting in the back of the hut, listening to what I have to say. I know it's you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. It all happened right before my eyes. And you were the only person in the hut at the time, right? That's right. Just my Miss Brett and myself. There was no one else. So I just don't understand how she could have possibly been stabbed like that.
A great mystery indeed.
I still can't believe it happened. That's why I just couldn't bring myself to speak up. It will be alright. However it happened, and whatever really went on in the sea that day, I promise you, I'm going to prove everything you've said you saw is true.
Spoken like a true Mikotoba. Now, I think we should discuss what's coming up in the trial, don't you? We don't have much time. We must make sure our facts are in order.
Yes, I expect the poison is going to come under close scrutiny in the upcoming proceedings. The police should hopefully have been identified on it by the blade by now. The trouble is, it's a completely new laboratory synthesized blend of alkaloids. The police won't have any way of testing it. Oh, I see.
Yes. Without this chemical reagent, it's impossible to detect the toxin.
Chemical region.
I sent a colleague of mine off with some earlier to deliver to police headquarters. I think perhaps you should have some as well, though, just in case. It has been added. What's the matter, Susato? You're suddenly very quiet.
It's the newspaper article. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. I'm wondering how the information got out, given that it was a government secret. It was all the Englishwoman's doing. What? It was when the professor and Soseki were being interviewed at the laboratory. That so-called English lady swanned in, and without any compunction said to Professor Mikotoba, "Oh, Professor, surely your guests would love to hear about your work on that substance there."
It put me in a very awkward position, to be frank. But Soseki-san's curiosity had been piqued, so I had little choice but to give him a cursory introduction.
So then, Soseki-san knew about the poison.
Yes, and it's highly likely that the reporter who was writing up the story about us would have caught the glimpse of the toxin, too.
This Memo-san. By the way, did a reporter join you when you went into the beach? Oh, no, I don't remember the reporter being there.
Indeed, he shouldn't have been. I very much doubt that anyone would have wanted him there.
Oh?
A known criminal had been given permission by the authorities to bathe by the seaside. Soseki-san pointed out that inviting a reporter might be problematic, so the man was sent back to his office.
If he wrote the article and the article on the secrets, then he's just like Ash. See the parallels? Oh yeah, because he works for like the telecom or the communications or like facility. The poison is a government secret as much as what's it called? The Morse code. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the vision. Yet he obviously didn't go back. He secretly followed the party to the beach and took this very candid photo. And then presumably he posted it anonymously to the police. Ah!
Yes, That must be what happened. Counsel! We've just heard that the new witness is now ready to testify. The trial is about to resume. Please proceed to the courtroom at once. It's time to steal ourselves once again, then. Defense Attorney Ryutaro Hanaruhodo.
Yes. Ray has put her faith in me now and told me everything. So I can't let her down. I have to prove what she's telling the court is true. I have to prove what really happened that day.
Let me go a sec. I have to, what's it called? Maybe get some hand lotion. It shouldn't be too long. Guys need some lotion. Sorry, my hands got super dry out of nowhere. I was like, what's it called? I know it's gonna be a problem picking up the controller, so I just have to like press the circle button very discreetly. So it doesn't get too greasy. I hereby call this court to order as we reconvene to continue the trial of Raymond Bobby. Let me save it a moment just to kind of like put like a little bookmark. Oh shit. I guess probably the one down here. Oh man, this controller is so greasy. Wait, no. Back! Prosecutor Aochi, have you summoned a new witness?
Before I address that question, Your Excellency, I have some very important news to share.
Oh?
What news? And why does he look so happy about it?
During the recess with collaboration of Professor Mikotoba's laboratory at Yume University, the police re-examined the knife that was used to end Miss Giselle Brett's life.
Excellent. I admire your rapid handling of the matter.
Oh, too kind! Your Excellency, too kind! I was merely carrying out your instruction, of course.
I had the Regent delivered to the police headquarters by rickshaw, so it would be there in good time.
But judging by the man's swag...
Oh. But judging from the man's swagger, I fear we might need to brace ourselves for the inevitable.
And counsel, what were the results?
This dagger, which is so cruelly used to end the life of the victim, has no trace of poison anywhere along its blade.
What? Are you sure about that? We already went over this. It's hard to detect.
I would stake the reputation of the police on it.
Armed with the Regent, the test is extremely simple. They couldn't have made a mistake.
In short, the accused's feeble excuse earlier has been utterly destroyed. Now, the prosecution's ready to call a new witness.
Ah, the newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. Good. Very well, officer. Bring in the witness.
No trace of poison on the knife. But if that's really the case, how could the toxin have entered the victim's body?
Let's see, what kind of voice do I do for this guy? Yeah.
Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court.
Right and men and member of the Shoyu News. I'm what people like to call a journo.
What's a journo, Father? Do you know?
It's simply a contraction of journalist. I'm there when the news breaks, putting pen to paper to catch those scoops so they print in the next morning. Writes in Men and Memo, yippee, yes! Oh man, he's pretty dashing. They don't call me the hero of the Herald for nothing. The nice guy of news.
Oh, so, it was you who took the photograph, was it?
Well, what do we have here?
I'm sorry.
Oh, brace yourselves, people! Many Memo sends a scoop in the offing. Female student up to foul play, defended by curiously handsome lawyer in the student Supreme Court. Female student up to foul play, defended by curiously handsome young lawyer. You're curiously attractive for a fishman. Curiously attractive for a young lawyer. The reader will lap this up. We'll set it up above the folded 70-point and 5-leg format in the morning edition.
Huh?
Right then, let's start with your name.
Oh, it's Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Next, what made you want to become a lawyer?
Well, I wanted to reform our country's legal system, I suppose.
Ryutaro has suddenly become very ambitious, I see.
I just borrowed Kazuma-san's dream for a while.
By the way, my name is Taketsu-auchi. That's Taketsuchi Auchi. The so-called dark horse of the Supreme Court. My objections strike fear into every defense lawyer's heart.
The suspender snap. It says so much swagger in it. No, the readers won't buy that.
What?
Witness. Yes. What this court demands to know is whether or not you were responsible for taking this photo. Ashley isn't looking in the eyes, so he's like, oh, pretty wife was looking at me. He's such a prick, but it's just staring at his many man boobs. It's really awesome. Many man boobs. It was delivered anonymously to the Imperial Police Bureau only yesterday. Yeah, I wouldn't be a journo if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that now, would I? Sometimes stories call out to me. Sometimes I have to chase them down. But either way, you gotta be fast. Fast legs to run with, and fast hands to write with. It's no good if you don't jot them down, I always say. That's what I call my many memos-ism.
Many memoism.
Ah yes, I remember your face. We met that day when you were interviewing myself and Soseki-san. Yes, right, that was me, Many Memo again. But you were supposed to go back to the Shoyu news offices after our meeting. But the scoop is, I didn't. Because that English woman's words had piqued my journalistic interest.
Miss Brett's words?
A criminal, left to do as she pleases, just because she happens to be a British citizen. Am I right? It's horse dung! This country's judiciary is rotten to the core. The Supreme Court's rulings aren't worth the paper they're printed on. The police are just imperial pawns.
Stay your tongue, young man. These are complex political issues at play.
Well, anyways, I quickly jotted down the words she said in my many memo pad. Purposely designed him with such a strong chest, such a big thing is designed. We changed his name to Munigura with Muna as chest. Oh yeah, cause Muna. I feel like I remember that with like that one anime, Abenobashi had like this chesty character named like Mune Mune. Are you ready? I'll read it out. It's all here. Right? Here goes. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. A serious criminal going to some junket. The people need to know about this. Nearly Mr. Boob. That's why I decided to sneak up on them. To get that woman's story so I could really hammer her in the press. Do you mean to say you did indeed witness it firsthand? The grim scene portrayed in the photograph. Oh yes, I saw it with my very own journo eyes. From the start to finish, through the viewfinder of my trusty camera. Thank you, Many Memo-san. You will give your formal testimony before court now. You will state exactly what it is that you witnessed on the events surrounding Miss Brett's death. The beach hut was made of a shoddy old reed screens, so there are plenty of gags you could see inside through. The Englishwoman was sitting on the stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the Englishwoman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. My smoldering journo spirit burst with flames. Quick as a flash, I whipped out my camera, ready to click. I pulled apart the raw weave of one of the screens and poked the lenses through for a perfect shot.
Reed screens, you say?
Right. You could see them clearly through that in that great shot I snapped. The hut walls were just screens made of coarsely woven reeds. Yes, it allows the breeze to pass through and bring some relief to the summer heat. And it was a breeze for me to poke the camera through and see the whole thing hotting up.
Ignoring for the time being the appalling invasion of privacy involved, did you witness everything that happened from the moment the defendant entered the hut?
Oh yes, I saw it. I saw the whole thing from start to finish.
And you say you took the photographs through the gap in one of the screens.
Luckily for me, they were pretty shoddily woven. I pulled the reeds apart and thrust the lens of my camera through the gap. I would get away with it, or would I be seen? That was the gamble of a lifetime.
A tenacity of purpose that's considered admirable in a journalist, I suppose.
Run a risk one day, run a scoop the next. That's Many Memoism in a nutshell. At last, it would appear we have a genuine witness of this wicked crime. The evidence and testimony are extremely compelling. I believe we may be close to a verdict.
No!
Wonderful news, Your Excellency. Wonderful.
Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that this testimony begs one very large question.
What question?
Exclusive news, a startling photograph, all the makings of an exceptional story for the reporter. Why then was the story never published?
Oh, that's right.
It seems clear to me that these circumstances at play here have yet to be understood.
More pathetic excuses.
Very well then, counsel. Procedure through cross-examination.
Yes, Your Excellency. There's more to this story than meets the eye. He's keeping something about this case very close to his chest. His big burly big booba. His many memo memories.
Let's see, the beach hut was made of old reed. The English one was sitting. Seconds later, the girl pulls a knife, pulling as she stabbed her in the back. Let's see about this one. He was EP and forgot. Your Honor, this is what the kids would call an epic fail.
Do you swear before the court that you actually saw the precise moment when the stabbing took place?
Ha! A precise moment? I didn't just see that. I saw the whole hellish scene play out, from start to finish.
I have here a simple plan for the beach hut. Perhaps you could use it to explain the court exactly what you saw.
Right you are. It's all here in my memo pad. When I first peered into the hut, I'm sure that the Englishwoman was on this stool at the back of the hut here.
Yes, the accuser's own testimony confirmed that.
She just sat at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly, is what I have noted down.
It's my turn to testify now. Try not to interrupt. Then, the next moment, as I was watching, the evil student girl entered the hut. After a while, the pair of them ended up in the middle of the hut, arguing furiously. The Englishwoman went for the student, but the girl dodged out the way. And in a flash, plunged the knife into her adversary's back as the two passed each other. What you described as a grim crime indeed. Never sugarcoat the truth. That's what many memoism says.
By the way, Many Memo-san, whilst you were watching that terrible scene unfold before your eyes in the gap of the screen, did it not occur to you to try to prevent the tragedy rather than capture it on film?
Journos have to be observers. We can't get involved. That's our raison d'etre.
So you didn't converse with Miss Brett at all?
Obviously not. An observer always remains on the outset, looking in.
And that's something to be proud of, is it?
Your Excellency, if I may. Yes, Professor. One time I made a list of every time he mentioned many memoism. It's a strange amount of depth. He seems to have a lot of thought put into his many memoisms. I think the witness's last expertly phrased statement should perhaps be added to this form of testimony.
Father, what are you...
I will grant the defense's request. Many Memo-san, will you supplement your formal testimony with the aforementioned statement? Well, nihilism is the foundation of many memoism, but I'll gladly prove that my words aren't meaningless. Nihilism. Yeah, we believe in nothing. We are nihilists. Sorry, the Big Lebowski. Everyone set foot. There's the observer. He claims to have spied on the whole affair from start to finish. If true, his testimony is devastating.
But it does seem as though he's holding something back, doesn't it?
If that's how you feel, I suggest you trust your instinct and press him on every statement he says. As you've no doubt seen many times before in your role as a judicial assistant.
Yes, I have. I've seen witnesses like this pressed often. I know exactly what to do.
Let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5. Never once set foot. I was only there as an observer. I wonder if he has anything to say about the fountain pen, though. Let's see. If I can somehow... Yeah, now I can look at this and be like... These are Ryutaro many memos, like, initials, too. Nihilism is the belief that life has no meaning, purpose, and reason. I find it so strange that many memos are nihilist, but I might just be overthinking a one-off joke. I guess it's the idea of trying to remain objective, and I guess if you're like, I guess have that sort of nihilistic belief that, I guess it's more finding comfort in the fact that there isn't anything to, there's no deeper meaning to it. I guess that's probably kind of like the irony, is that even though he's like a journalist that's trying to find the meaning in anything and create a story from the meanings he can find in a story, he personally doesn't, I guess, find solace in that nothing fundamentally has any kind of meaning. I guess it's almost that kind of symbolic gesture that if he was somehow involved in this, then a lot of it would be owed to the idea that a lot of his own, like, beliefs contradict his actions. Or that his intuition as a journalist is, like, I guess, sort of, like, contradicted in the sense that it's a job where you have to seek answers, but nihilism is the comfort that there aren't any answers. Believe in grief. Oh, that's just RM. This is all just stuff for... I'm not going to find any extra, like, wait a second, Ryutaro.
Objection!
Many Memo-san, until now I've had a firm belief that newspapers are in the business of uncovering and publishing the truth.
You're spot on there. The press doesn't lie, which is why I'm proud to wear the emblem of the Show You News on my arm. The same one on the pen. In a way, that's more many memoism. It's a very fascinating look on his character. I really like that. I think it's Ryten. Oh, not Ryutaro. Sorry, my mind is alternating between, what's it called? Ryutaro and Ryten. So yeah, Ryten. Oh, right, like writing. Ryten as in writing. Writing many memos. I get it. Sorry, it just hit me. Yeah. Because I feel like this already, like, kind of, like, outlines it. Because, like, I was right there saying, like, oh yeah, like, as a journalist, your thing is uncovering the truth and seeking more, like, meaning or understanding of stuff. And he's saying that fundamental reason that, what's it called? That you would want to search out for the answer is a many memoism. But that's kind of the opposite of his own personal beliefs. So it's almost as if the many memoisms is kind of like the sort of idealistic version of the kind of journalist that many memo seeks to be. Or I guess maybe aims to be. Or hopes to be.
Sadly, though, it seems the journalists who write for these papers don't always share the same passion for the truth.
What are you suggesting with those recriminatory words, Counsel?
Many Memo-san, do you recognize this fountain pen?
Oh!
This pen was found at the scene of Mrs. Brett's death. He doesn't believe in humanisms because menimism clashes with it, but that's so weird. It's really fucked up and I love that.
Yeah, because I guess if humanism is sort of like almost that deep fundamental understanding of what a, I guess, what's it called? How people behave and interact. Like, of course, as a journalist, you'll probably want to examine like how people behave and interact and sort of like feel empathy for like your subjects. But at the same time, it also stresses for objectivity. So it's that kind of weird thing where objectivity in a sense is kind of like, I guess, nihilistic in the sense of trying not to find meaning in certain things, because if you try to look for a deeper meaning, it goes for objective to subjective, I guess, in how you would see the truth. Or the more you elaborate on it, the more your own personal perspective would go into it. Which is also wild because many memoism is his own personal sort of injection of what his own personal principles would be, even though he personally doesn't follow them as much as he aims to do with his rules.
In fact, the murdered victim was gripping it in her hand as she died.
What are you?
If you look at the barrel of the pen, you'll notice its owner's initials are engraved here. RM.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Counsel. The initials of the accused, Raymond Bummy.
Is it a coincidence, I wonder? That your initials are also RM?
No!
Ryutan Many Memo. RM.
That's horse dung! Can't you see? One of the central tenets of many memoism is being a pencil user.
And yet, as the court will clearly be able to see on your right hand, there's a very obvious blue ink stain.
It would appear you must have rather carelessly left it somewhere recently. Your favorite fountain pen, that is. Horsey horse dung!
Many Memo-san, is it not the case that before she died, you met with Giselle Brett at the beach hut?
Objection!
Why should we listen to this absurd nonsense? It's nothing but another excuse.
Exactly! Shoyu News will stand behind me all the way. I deny everything. There must be as many people with the name RM as there are stars in the night sky.
The defense has neither the time nor the inclination to count every star in the sky. And there's no need anyway, because this pen has more to tell. Yes, there is another clue. A clue that undeniably proves who its owner really is.
In that case, counsel, the defense will now show the court where this alleged clue lies.
Of course, Your Excellency. Clue on this fountain pen that clearly reveals its identity.
Oh, I see. You lick pens to start the ink, not pencils. It's like Many Memo is willing to lie about his deep, important philosophy. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of weird. You don't really lick the end of a pencil. It's usually something where you would kind of wet the pen a bit. But I don't think you really wet a pencil. It's this guy. Let's see.
There's some sort of emblem here, look. But
Isn't that... must belong to some other organization, a business of some kind. That would seem to imply the pen doesn't belong to Ray. Yeah.
as well as the initials, there's also an emblem on the fountain pen. An emblem that you will of course recognize, Many Memo-san.
Goodness me, it's the emblem of Shoyu News.
In other words, the owner of this pen is an employee of the Shoyu News, whose initials are RM. Suddenly the stars in the line don't seem so numerous, do they? Well, Many Memo-san, how do you respond?
No! Order! 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 Explain yourself, witness. So, this is how the mighty Supreme Court works, is it? Using coercive tactics to have well-meaning citizens reveal harmful secrets.
I've used nothing but honest tactics.
Alright then, fine. I won't try to hide it anymore. Yes, not long before the grim tragedy unfolded, I, a Shoyu News reporter, on behalf of the public, conducted an interview with the Englishwoman.
An interview?
You never mentioned this before.
When exactly was this?
As I said, it was before that evil little student girl showed her face in the hut. It could have lasted more than 2 or 3 minutes, that is all. It was a brief exchange, but it came to nothing. And as many memoists say, the people don't pay their dues for unworthy news. However insignificant you deem it to be, this court cannot overlook the meeting between yourself and the victim. You will testify now under oath about the precise nature of the meeting and what transpired. Got it. Yes. Alright. But on one condition.
Condition?
In all good conscience, I couldn't speak out alone about this. You need to call back the earlier witness, Soseki Natsume.
Soseki?
Oh yes, according to my notes here, that man has a secret of his own, and brace yourselves. It's not a harmless one. It's big.
What?
Many Memoism states that one man's secret is every other man's front page story. Very well. I will grant the witness permission and request this in instant. Officer, summon the earlier witness back to the stand.
Soseki-san, hiding something?
I guess I'll be another, let's say, maybe 20-ish minutes. I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed, and the other witnesses came forward. Ass is flatter than the name paper on his memo pad. all of his work went to his boobs, not his butt, sadly. The detective realized that the victim had a pulse, so he ran off and fetched help. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why many Memoism demands that I reveal it now. You mean to say the victim?
The victim regained consciousness?
And
when she did, you decided to ask her a question?
That's, true. Yes. He did. And that's not all. That woman gave him a very definitive answer. An answer that incriminates the accused.
This is preposterous. Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack?
It wasn't even a conversation. Yes, I did pose the withering English Rose a question. I don't deny it. But she could no longer speak. She was barely conscious even. Counsel for the defense. I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter's claiming that Miss Brett implicated Ray somehow. What on earth happened in that hut?
Defense 3, 2. The victim had a pulse. That's when this writer. Okay, what's the question?
Hold it!
What question? What exactly did he say?
Well, now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Writer Man?
Oh! Out with it, you yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman?
Well, in truth, I'd been catching crabs on the water's edge, and building castles in the sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for a grown man. But then, all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air.
Ray,
I ran up to the beach to see what happened, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Hosonaga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead English woman. I nearly jumped out of my skin.
but what did you ask her, Soseki-san?
I asked her, who did this to you? Don't protract this any longer. How did the woman respond? She didn't. She said nothing in response. What? When in the stand, you will answer the question asked to you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand you amend your testimony. I will. Who did this to you? But she never responded. Let's see.
Hold it!
So you tried to find out who the culprit was.
He who asks questions is a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labeled as a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever.
However, you've indicated the victim failed to respond, is that correct?
I know why. I know why the English woman said nothing. She was ignoring me. Some of my stoop and my mustache, because I'm Japanese.
Oh dear. Soseki-san really developed a dislike for the English, it seems.
Having read the report of this time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised. His xenophobia. But the English woman didn't ignore you at all. Did she, Mr. Writer Man? Well, probably true. That this time in England just made him so, like, paralyzed with fear that he just has this sort of, like, kind of just gut response and this sort of trick of reaction. Well, alright. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. She just lifted a troubling finger and pointed in the direction of the defendant.
Hold it!
Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant. Soseki-san, is that really true?
It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the English woman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. And when I asked who did this to you, the English woman summoned her last ounce of strength to point at the trembling finger at the back of the hut. Which was, it can't be denied, the direction of the student girl who stands accused today.
No.
So Seki-san, why on earth did you neglect this mention in the original testimony? Fiddlesticks, I say. This is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese. The very English word of fiddlesticks. Yes, of course. The English woman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling. She was trembling. Everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly. In a very different direction of where the student girl was standing. Somewhere in the back of the hut, where no one was standing at all.
You mean that your memory of the events and the direction which the victim was pointing are both unclear?
Yes, that's it. Unclear. I'm very, very unclear.
Objection!
Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes, the woman may be barely have been conscious. Yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there is no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because, as you can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It is now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could have possibly committed the crime.
I'm inclined to agree. And in the absence of any credible argument of the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial.
No. No!
Ha ha ha! The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyers' hopes dashed. 92 point across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition. This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. You must think back over everything we learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Ray gave us her account of how the events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Giselle Brett was killed.
I was sitting at the back of the hut listening to what I was saying, and then slumped over moments later. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, the knife in her back.
How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in the beach hut that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amidst the information we gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it then. The defense has nothing further to add.
So, the gallant yokel student's luck has finally run out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on the matter.
This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's all over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim?
I think I know.
Objection!
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your agitation for the time being.
Oh? To what end, counsel?
The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection!
An alternate theory? Ha! None exists.
Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime.
What?
And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time. By mustering all of her remaining strength and pointing her trembling finger in the killer's direction.
This is fiction. Fantasy.
Very well. As you seem to be sure of yourself, counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryutaro Naruhodo,
Yes, Your Excellency.
you will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly were you proposing the victim was concealed?
I guess it would be behind here. Like, it would be that sort of wall space. Because, like, the victim was there, the culprit was there, the fronds were there. And this was exactly the place where you could take the picture.
Take that!
Naruhodo-san would never give up. And I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed by this location here.
Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut?
What?
Order, order, order. But student lawyer Naruhodo Esquire, that makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering around. I can swear to that.
Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there'd be no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut.
Actually, Prosecutor Aoichi, there is a way. And, in the point of a fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that's precisely the way Miss Brett was killed.
You're bluffing! You're bluffing, you yoke!
The defense assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory? I guess it would be that crime scene photograph, because that's where it was called. There is a little shit in the back. You go see them.
Take that!
The original photographic print.
Yes, it's clearly visible in the print. The trace of the fatal thrust was delivered outside.
Objection!
Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of such a thing.
I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone at least appears to have noticed what I'm referring to.
Counsel, once again I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where in this photograph is the trace of the stabbing, which you claim take place? It would be this guy. That's like the back. Yeah, there's a little place for a knife.
Take that!
Look closely just there. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, I can't. I can't see any such thing.
It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls as you expect. However, by parting the reeds, the knife blade could easily penetrate them.
This is extraordinary.
Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And of course, of everyone present in the scene, there's only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right in Many Momo-san. It could have only been you. No!
Objection!
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume as part of this farcical scenario the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection!
No, of course not.
We're not.
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death.
What's it called? She was sitting. She shat on the stool.
The stool?
Have another look at the photograph. The slit the reed screen would align perfectly in the back of the person who was sitting on that stool.
My word. So, in fact, the victim was
Killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the reed screen.
Ah!
Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctually, and then unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut before the defendant, Minbami-san, appalling eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Many Momo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge.
This is absurd.
That will do. It would appear we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means the defendant Mbami-san is innocent of the crime.
Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave.
I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. Yaoji clan can't. What of my growth? My growth of hope? It wasn't an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will thereby move to conclude the Oh man. I know I'm probably gonna have to head out soon, but... Well, this is all rather convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is this? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedoms to speak and branding them as criminals?
But we've established the victim was stabbed from outside the hut through the reed screen walls.
And no one else but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It was a perfectly logical deduction.
So,
Your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it?
well, it seems a little irrelevant now.
Irrelevant. Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else.
What? What are you talking about?
Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. It's so silly. Yeah, it's like stretching out his, like, suspenders. And a little slap. Because of the dirt you digged up. What? Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness. What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course.
The poison?
Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that the deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it's been shown that this poison has been administered for the victim, Miss Brett, is that right? That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that this particular poison was used. I see. So presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed. Given that her pupils were constricted, it seems highly likely, yes? Many memos taken together. Ash memo is so real. It looks so official. I feel like it definitely feels like... Oh, I guess with the different poses. If she'd been dead, the poison could have circulated in her body.
How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not the jot who stabbed at the back and whose blade.
Would you mind if I sent them on Twitter? That would be awesome.
Because quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the blade, but by the poison.
Objection!
But that can't be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I've already...
Objection!
Forgotten already? Have we, Yoko? During these proceedings, the laboratory of the professor of your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever.
So let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turns out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right?
well...
Order, order. But where does this leave us? How in that case did the poison enter her body? There's an undeniable obvious answer to that. She most likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked into the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have slipped into either.
So someone made her drink it.
Well, what do you know?
Look at those dashing eyes. That'll make for a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already.
Hold it!
Established? What are you talking about? Huh, don't tell me you've already forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who's established it was you. Me? What on earth does he mean? Ooh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder, this is.
It would seem this trial is not destined to end yet, after all. I hereby call upon the witness for further testimony.
That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim to be impossible that you were responsible for administering the poison, but you will explain the basis of which you make the claim.
I'm a journo and I'm a man, but I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now. That's because many memoism. For a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where's this trial going to take us?
Ooh, this seems like a good place to be able to rest my voice. Alright. One of Ashley's tricks. Committed the one crime, but you can't quite commit it either. It's like, I kinda did the crime, but you can't really, like, blame me for this particular part of the crime that I committed. It's out of sequence of events. I may have stabbed her, but I didn't kill her, is probably the main solution.
Thank you all so much for coming along. What's it called? It's been really great. I've been feeling a little down throughout the week, so it's really nice to be able to jump in and be able to, like, do this. It's really fun to be able to see Many Memo. I think he's such a fun person to be able to follow. He has such a very fun way of being able to, like, almost kind of, like, twist the trial, like, around, like, every little bit. But before I head out, I'm gonna poke my beauty mark, poke the mic, send out all kinds of good vibes, and hopefully good peace of mind. But until next time, I'll be seeing y'all on this Sunday, where I will try to figure out what to play.
Ooh, I need to see that.
Bye, everyone.